We are back with the fourth installment of our Know Your Options bonus episode series, which is just some extra episodes that I've put together with my friend Stephanie, who's a doula, childbirth educator, and lactation consultant, to bring childbirth education to you guys. So today we're talking about natural coping techniques in labor. So these are your unmedicated options with coping, which are important for everyone to know because, you might need them before you even get to the hospital. So we're going to be going over that today, and I'm also going to have a free download for you that has a shopping list of some tools that you might want to bring with you, and you can get that at thebirthhour.com/bonus4, and that's the number 4, and I'll remind you of that again at the end of this episode. All right, I am back with Stephanie Spitzer-Hanks, my partner in crime with making this childbirth education course, and today we're talking about natural coping techniques in labor, and Stephanie made the really good point to me that this applies to everyone because you aren't going to just walk in, to a hospital and get an epidural.
Before your first contraction, right?
Yeah, and you might be at home for a while,
yeah.
Or, epidurals don't always go as planned or aren't available, whatever. So you either are completely, wanting an unmedicated birth, and this will be great information for you, or it's just great information to have, in partnership with pain medication options.
Because you never know. You never know how it's going to, sometimes epidurals don't work perfectly. I have seen them not work perfectly, and I've seen them not be options based on, a mom's platelet levels on the day, for example. So things that you can't necessarily predict. Or a labor that moves really quickly. There's not time to get an epidural. So this is for all the moms who are going to have contractions.
Yeah, we want to share all of our best tips with you guys here today. And then we'll also be going into greater detail in the course. This is a huge section of the course because we want everybody to have these options available to them. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Stephanie.
Yeah, some of my favorite techniques for coping come from prenatal yoga, basically. So I would really, really encourage everybody to take a class. And if a class isn't available in your area, find some good stuff online or order some videos. Practicing breathing, that sort of sustained, deep breathing, that is a thing that you're going to use from your first contraction all the way through till the baby's out and they're doing that lovely fundal massage on your uterus, which is not pleasant. And you'll need to breathe through that. So, and even through breastfeeding, you're going to need to have this breath work that's just going to help keep you calm, focused, grounded, keep the oxygen flowing to you and your baby, help keep that oxytocin flowing. So breath is my number one natural coping technique. And it's sometimes hard to remember because when that contraction hits, sometimes people really tense up, freeze up, and forget to breathe. So having a partner there that maybe isn't telling, I don't encourage partners to say, now remember to breathe. Because you're going to get punched. There's nothing more annoying than that when you're in labor. So I encourage partners to just breathe audibly along with just deep breath in so that she can hear you breathe. And then there's something sort of on a more basic physiological level where she will regulate to your calm, steady breath. So nice, deep, steady, calm breaths is going to be the foundation to all coping techniques. And then movement, I think, is probably number 2. Making sure that you keep moving and changing positions and don't just lie in the bed. That's not it can be one of the positions that you move through, but staying in the bed the whole time, it generally doesn't help people to cope. So getting up, walking around, sitting down on a birth ball, getting on hands and knees, getting into a squatting position, not staying in any one position for more than a half hour at a time, at the maximum. Just that movement really helps to progress your labor. It helps distract you from the pain that you're feeling. If water's available, that's another really great tool. Getting in a hot shower and putting that spray of water directly on the part that really hurts. It's usually on your low back or on your hips. Getting into a tub is great, especially really deep ones. That's why when you see water births, the water comes up above the woman's belly or mostly can cover her belly. I don't know, probably has something to do with buoyancy. I'm not exactly sure, but it can work really well. Some people find it really helpful. Some women don't. They try it and they get right back out and they're like, this is not for me. But
it allows you to get into positions that you might not be so flexible to get into without the help of water.
True.
For me, I remember just sinking into the squat, which I would have never been able to do just on the floor.
Yeah, that's true. That's helpful in movement. So, some people like it, some people don't, but just continuing to move around in the water or in and out of the water, in and out of the shower. And I think having a calm, supportive person is invaluable. That's, what a doula is. You can also achieve that with a calm and educated partner or other family member or friend that you have. It's kind of a lot to put on a partner because they're having a baby too, and they might be sort of internally freaking out, but it just depends on who it is and how well they can kind of stay in the moment and help keep you grounded. Having them do certain kind of counter pressure techniques is also super helpful. So putting pressure on the low back or the hips, just when you're in labor and that baby's moving through your pelvis, you just sort of feel like your pelvis is about to fly apart. So having somebody sort of put their steady hands on there really does a lot. And you can't imagine that it would be as helpful as it is, but it's really helpful.
Yeah, as far as like your partner helping, that's probably my favorite module of our course. And when I've attended your in-person courses, I feel like it's where the partners really perk up because it's something tangible that they can do to help you through this birth process that they might feel mostly, not helpful because it's not their body. But yeah, I just love that our course is for both parents, to get through this birth together. And so we go over those techniques really in detail there with videos and everything. So I just kind of wanted to plug that there and give another shout out to the counter pressure with my first labor. I was in labor for like 34 hours and baby was posterior, sunny side up, which contributes to more pain in the back. And my husband was doing counter pressure, like I would say pretty much the entire 34 hours, at least every time I had a contraction. And I liked it so much that I was very much in my head and not speaking a lot, but I could tell when he was using one hand instead of two, and I'd be like, both hands! And kind of let him know I was aware that he was slacking off, but he was, sore the next day from how much he did. I even made him a shirt that says counter pressure on it instead of birth partner, because that was his one main role. So it's really all about knowing all these tools and finding the one that works most for you. Because I've told people that story and they've been like, I would have hated to be touched, everyone's different.
Totally. And you can be different at different parts of your labor. Sometimes what's working for you in early labor does not work once you hit a more active phase of labor.
When I was pushing, I didn't want the counter pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would just feel like pushing things in the wrong direction.
Yeah, probably.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can go over a few of the little tools. These are things that a doula would likely bring with them. If you're not going to have a doula, they'd be great investments. So the free download today will list all of them with some of our favorite specific ones. But if you just kind of want to go over a few.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that you already have. So, I really recommend having lip balm handy because all that breathing is going to dry your lips out. So you definitely want to have lip balm where you can find it. Having a water bottle with a bendy straw is a real important tool for me because particularly when moms are lying down or in, different positions, they don't want to have to tilt their heads back to drink from a water bottle, which they might normally in their everyday life use all the time. But when women are lying down, they still need to keep up the hydration. So the little bendy straw is super important.
My midwife's home birth kit had bendy straws in it.
Yes.
It's also so useful when you're breastfeeding. Having a straw makes you drink way more water.
It does.
I still use it every day.
Yeah. So having a straw, so finding a nice big water bottle with a bendy straw is a great tool. I recommend breath mints, particularly for partners, because all that breathing in tandem.
You're going to get really frustrated if it doesn't smell good.
Yeah, and you
haven't eaten in a while.
And your sense of smell is heightened in labor, in pregnancy and in labor particularly. And so you don't want to smell stinky breath. Speaking of scents, it's nice to have unscented lotion because sometimes even your favorite scent is overpowering. In labor. You really are entering a different plane in your senses. Things that you normally would love, you don't want to smell at all. Also, some people really like to have their diffusers going, and there's people that are really into essential oils. It's not really my gig, but people who are into it, will put different ones on at different points in labor to try to help you make progress. It can also just sort of make a nice atmosphere in the room, particularly in a hospital room where you don't want it to smell like a hospital. You want it to smell like whatever nice smell you can put in there. Heating pad, fan, massage tools, having speakers with your favorite playlists, or headphones if you really want to go more internal, like if with your own guided meditations or birth affirmations. Sometimes those work better as headphones because then you can really focus on them and not have other people talking, distracting you. LED candles and twinkle lights. I love this in the bathroom of a hospital is one of the most private places you can be, but they are like caves. They're so dark. Yeah. So you can have the full light on and it's totally like not ambient light at all, or you can bring your own little, night lights or LED candles in there with you, and then you can hang out in there for longer, it's a good place to be undisturbed. Birth balls, peanut balls. Sometimes hospitals have these. Peanut ball, you can use a hospital one, but the birth ball, I really encourage people to buy their own so they can have it at home in early labor. They can use it to bounce the baby on after they get home from the hospital.
Pregnancy is a great way to get the baby in a good position.
I love a birth ball. I think every person should have their own. I mean, they're less than $10. They're super affordable. So you can have it be the one that's yours, the level of inflation that you like and that's sized to you, instead of kind of depending on whatever they have on hand at the hospital. So I even if the hospital has one, I recommend people bringing their own.
So I've heard great uses for the peanut ball, especially for women who have an epidural as well, to kind of prop up their leg.
100%. Yeah, there's some really good research out there to support using peanut balls, particularly for epidural moms, just because people who are unmedicated really do more movement and want to be up and out of bed. But I do use them with moms that don't have an epidural. But definitely, if a mom gets an epidural, I'm busting my peanut ball out and putting it between her legs because that's really going to help her continue to make progress and keep her pelvis open and wide and encourage a baby who might be posterior to turn to an anterior position that's going to be more easy for her to birth. So that's one of the downsides of an epidural is that you're more likely to have a posterior baby, which is more difficult and causes more tearing if you are able to come to that point of pushing that baby out. But a peanut ball can be one of the ways that you can help yourself out in that area. And those also are not super expensive. So if your hospital doesn't have one, you're planning an epidural, definitely have a peanut ball on hand.
For moms who are planning to get an epidural, what would you say is the most beneficial, use of movement prior to getting that? You want to obviously, probably get a lot of movement knowing that you're going to be in bed.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, epidurals, the big trade-off, in my opinion, is that you lose your mobility. And there's a limitation on your mobility, I should say. So if you can delay it for as long as you can and really do what you can to use gravity and movement to help your baby descend and get in an ideal position before you get an epidural, that's probably going to, in the long term, help your labor to continue to progress. So gravity, movement, squats, doing all of that stuff before the epidural, because afterwards it's a lot more difficult to get gravity on your side.
So a lot of hospitals probably have kind of a policy around how far you should be dilated before you get.
Well, actually, I think maybe that used to be true, and it may still be true in some areas, but here I've had moms get epidurals fully dilated. I recently, just this summer, had a mom get an epidural while she was pushing.
Wow.
So it happens.
So as far as how early to get one, what in your experience is... I probably mostly recommend waiting as long as you can.
I recommend waiting, but I had a mom that got one at 2 centimeters, which I was shocked that they did that. But, I think it used to be, and maybe in some places they do put some limits, like you have to be 6 centimeters before you can get one or something like that. But I think she had some extenuating circumstances. And there are some other uses for epidurals that we don't always talk about, such as moms who have a high anxiety and, are very tense and nervous and maybe are survivors of sexual assault. And, they have legit reasons why this process of birth is terrifying to them. And so an epidural can really help them to relax and make the progress that they need to do without having those overwhelming sensations coming at them. So it could be that's why the mom got one at 2 centimeters. I wasn't there. She called me. She's like, I got one already. And I was like, what? Wait, what? So I joined her after the fact. But so, I'm continually surprised by the range and how there doesn't seem to be any rules about it, at least in the hospitals where I'm working.
Probably a good question to ask,
Yeah.
though, during that hospital tour.
Yes.
Very cool. Well, we actually go over all of the different pain medication options in one of the modules of the course. And I love that there are other options besides an epidural that give you a little bit more mobility. And I love the way that you kind of go over the pros and cons of each one. So we will have more information on that in the course. But on the next mini episode, we are going to be talking about reducing the risk of tearing, which was another really big question I've been getting from my listeners. I think it's something that there's a lot of fear around, especially if you've had a birth with tearing previously and things like that. So
I think just the phrase ring of fire is enough to strike terror in any woman's heart. But we'll talk about that.
We should rebrand that. All right, so tune in next week to hear us talk about that. All right, just a quick reminder that you can head over to thebirthhour.com/bonus4 to get that free download with things that you can bring with you to help you with natural coping techniques. And don't forget, you can head over to thebirthhour.com/course to sign up for the course today and use the coupon code 100OFF for $100 off your purchase. We'll see you next week with another bonus episode and tomorrow with another birth story.